following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the second episode of Sports Chatter TV. I'm your host, Ev Bedell, alongside my co-host, Steve Atkinson. And we're a sports show that discusses the four major professional sports. Let's get started right away with talking about some NHL playoffs. Right now in the Eastern Conference, we already have the Eastern Conference Finals. We already have a matchup with the Boston Bruins versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. What do you think about that series coming up?
I'm very excited about this series. I think it's going to be just phenomenal to see two unbelievable teams going head-to-head. For me, there's really four key things to look at in this series. Number one, Iginla. You know, the Bruins have that underlying desire to prove Iginla wrong. I mean, they want to show him he made the wrong choice going to Pittsburgh, and what better way to do that than sending him home for the summer. But, I mean, the dynamic also runs both ways because Iginla wants to, prove himself, and he knows he's got to perform really to back it up in this series.
Yeah, Iginla, if people don't know, Jerome Iginla, former captain for the Calgary Flames for the past, seems like 10 years.
Yeah, franchise player.
And he was at the trade deadline. Boston Bruins were looking to acquire a goal-scoring threat. They were looking to add to their offensive depth, and there was a deal set in place. Numerous media reports that indicated Iginla was coming to the Bruins for defenseman Matt Bartowski and a future draft pick and a player in the AHL. At the last second, Iginla, since he could basically pick what team he wanted to play for, he pretty much dissed the Bruins and went to the Pittsburgh Penguins thinking he could win a Stanley Cup there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even notable stations like TSN were reporting Iginla to the Bruins. I mean, we thought it was a done deal, and then just pulls a fast one on us and goes to Pittsburgh.
For me, Iginla, I think the Bruins sort of lucked out, and looking back on it, at the time, Bruins fans were very angry about Iginla going to the Penguins because they thought he was the piece to put him over the top. But I think that the Bruins made out better because they got Matt Bartowski, who's playing phenomenal for them, right? Defense, a young defenseman, 24 out of Ohio State University. And they were able to keep their 19-year-old prospect in the AHL. And Iginla's 37, 38. He's up there in years. I mean, he's still a great player. But I think for the price that they were going to give up to get him, I think looking back on it, they made it in the end. But that's definitely, Bruins fans are very angry for Iginla, and that will be a big focus point of this series.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the next key thing to look at is going to be penalties. Now, the Bruins will need to absolutely stay out of the box. I mean, the Sens, the Penguins' previous opponent, a very good defensive team. They fell into this trap, and it cost them. I mean, it cost them the series. Penguins have scored 13 goals with a man advantage in their past 11 postseason games. And these goals are coming from 7 different players. I mean, just a crazy offensive threat all around. So, Bruins, their penalty kill has been there, but when you're going up against, Sidney Crosby, Malkin, Iginla, Kuntz, you can't be in the box.
For me, I think penalties is a big reason too, because looking at, say, goaltending, forwards, and defense, I think the Bruins in the series have the edge in goaltending.
Absolutely.
Pittsburgh, Fleury their marquee goalie hasn't even been played last series. He got pulled in the first series. And they have Vokun, who's a decent goaltender, but he's nowhere near to the level of Tuukka or Rask. And then defense, I think the Bruins have a better overall core of defense, but the Penguins have the best offensive defenseman of both, with Krista Tang, who's up for the Norris this year, which is given to the best defenseman in the NHL. And forwards, I think you have to give it to the Penguins. Their top 6 forwards are unbelievable, and the power play just blows the Bruins' power play out of the water.
It really does.
So it's the best scenario for the Bruins is going to be try to keep the penalties to a minimum and keep Pittsburgh off the power play so they can play 5-on-5 hockey.
Absolutely. And you touched on it already, coming up to my next point too, goaltending. I mean, it's tough to knock Vokun, a guy who's 6-1 right now, and he's got a 94% save percentage. I mean, he's up there right next to Jonathan Quick. And he's a veteran, but his problem is he's never had an extended playoff run. And I think that's where the Bruins are going to have an edge, actually, is because Tuukka's been there. He's right in his element, and they just they got to bring it to Vokun early.
I think another big storyline, sort of an underlying storyline for the series, is that if Bruins fans can remember, a couple of years ago they had first-line forward Mark Savard,
Of course.
who hasn't played in 3 or 4 years due to post-concussions from a hit he took from current Penguins forward. He was on the Penguins at the time too. Matt Cook, regarded as a dirty player. I mean, if you look on YouTube, it's just Matt Cook, dirty hit, dirty this. He's got suspended numerous times. He's cleaned it up the past 2 years, but I think hardcore, passionate Bruins fans will remember Matt Cook's hit on Savard, taking out Savard and sort of taking out their power play marquee player, because he was the one who controlled the power play pretty much when the Bruins were, I mean, at least decent on the power play.
Yeah. I mean, for Cook, he's a guy I'm automatically going to rope in with Rafi Torres. They're just goons. They're no good when they're out there. I mean, they're out there trying to hurt players, honestly, and that's the way it goes.
So going to the Western Conference right now, I mean, the Eastern Conference Finals, even though it's decided, it can't start because the Western Conference is still going on. You got 2 Game 7s coming up. Tonight at 8 o'clock, you have the LA Kings versus San Jose Sharks, which is tied at 3, which I predicted last week that the Kings are going to the finals against the Bruins. So I think this is number 6 6 Sharks versus 5 seed Kings, and I think this has been a great matchup. So what do you think tonight for the game?
I mean, I made this prediction last week. I still think the Sharks are going to take it. I mean, Couture, he just consistently playing out of his mind. I mean, Big Bad Joe, the two of them together. Jumbo Joe. I mean, I still think they have the edge, honestly, in this series.
I think the Kings are winning tonight, solely on the reason of goaltender Jonathan Quick. He's been playing out of his mind. I think he has the edge over Niemi, who in his right mind is a good goalie as well.
He's still been playing well. He's got a save percentage still in the upper 90s.
So I think the Kings are going to take it tonight, and then that will set up. And then the other series also tied at 3-3, Chicago versus Detroit, which has been a great series. I mean, it looked like Detroit had the game last night. They were up 2-1 going into the third, and then Chicago scores 3 to end up winning the game. And I mean, Chicago was the number 1 seed in hockey overall this season, and they were expected to, soundly handle the Red Wings this series. But I mean, going into Game 7, I think Chicago has it just because of their offensive talent. I think is better than Detroit.
I think ultimately right now the Red Wings just want it more. I mean, yes, the Blackhawks need to make up for that historical run at the beginning of the season. And I mean, no one in Chicago thought that this was going to be a 7-game series at all. But just Howard has been playing out of his mind. I mean, Damian Brunner, the guy, has just been putting the puck in the net and just making him look stupid.
Yeah.
You got to
give it to him? The main thing, I mean, you don't, here on the East Coast, you don't really watch that much West Coast hockey per se. I mean, you don't really get to see the Kings and Sharks on TV that much. But what I've noticed, I mean, Pavel Datsyuk on the Red Wings is a magician with the puck, probably the best stick handler and puck handler in the game.
Best hands.
But being able to see him on national TV, for the series, you realize how special of a player he is. And, I mean, he might be the reason that Detroit is able to knock off Chicago just because of his pure goal-scoring ability.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just it's mind-blowing to watch this guy with the puck, honestly. I mean, he has that instinct. He doesn't even have to look around. He knows where his players are. He knows where they're going to be, and he's just a playmaker, honestly.
So let's say we already have the Eastern Conference. Say Western Conference, it's LA versus Chicago for the Western Conference Finals. Going back to the Eastern Conference, who do you think? What are some do you have any key matchups you're looking forward to?
In the Eastern Conference,
Bruins versus Penguins.
Bruins Pens. Honestly, it's going to be Bergeron and Crosby. You got to see how Bergeron's going to, just block him out, because that's the key to success, really. And you got to get Chara out there every shift that Crosby's on the ice, because Dupuis, the rest of the line is awful without Crosby setting up plays. So I think key right there is just eliminating Crosby.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just because, I mean, the Penguins pretty much separate their superstars onto 2 lines. You have Crosby centering the first line and Malkin centering the second line. So for the Bruins, you have to decide, do I put the Bergeron line with Sagan and Marchand against the Crosby or Malkin line? And I think if you put the Bergeron line against Crosby, and then you have the Malkin line against the Krejci line, that's a pretty big responsibility for the Krejci line just because I don't think the Krejci line is good defensively in the zone as the Bergeron line, and it's going to be a big task to handle for them.
I also don't think that they're quick enough either, the Krejci line. They can't keep up with the Penguins' second line there. These guys will just pass circles around them, and the Bruins have to back check. That's going to be key.
That's a key for me too. So say in the Western Conference Finals, you have Chicago versus LA. I think the key matchup in that series, if it happens, is Chicago forwards versus the LA defense and Jonathan Quick in goal. I mean, Chicago has the clear advantage forwards over LA, but I think LA has the better goaltending in that series. So I think it's going to be if Jonathan Quick can stand on his head to beat Chicago, just because we've seen pretty much every Stanley Cup for the past 5 to 10 years that the team that wins it, usually their goaltender stands on its head. I mean, look at last year. LA won it last year. Jonathan Quick, again, led them. They were the ace seed. He just stood on his head that series as well. So that's a key matchup for me in that series.
Absolutely. I mean, this whole playoffs right now is just going to be unbelievable. Of course, every team going into it has won a Stanley Cup in the past 8 years, you know. It's just these teams want it really bad. But, I mean, for me, I still think San Jose is going to win it. Yes, Quick has been a huge asset, but just the power forwards for the Sharks as well as Niemi, that's going to project them forward. And the other Western Conference matchup with Detroit, I just think that their forwards aren't playing to their full ability right now, what they're capable of. And Crawford has been playing horrible as well. I mean, the guy's a sieve in net. So the Red Wings are going to advance, and then it's going to be between San Jose and Detroit.
All right, speaking of goaltenders standing on their head, I don't know if you saw, but one of the legendary goaltenders in hockey, Patrick Waugh, was just named the new Avalanche coach, which I think is pretty interesting just because, I mean, Waugh, goaltenders usually, out of all the players on the ice, usually are the most likely to become head coaches in the NHL just because, you know, as goaltending, they're leaders of the team, the backbone, they get to see the ice the most. And I think that it was pretty interesting that he was named. He actually did have some interesting quotes to say. He said, this is from Hockey Night in Canada on their Twitter feed, "We might not win a Stanley Cup next year, but we'll have a Stanley Cup attitude," which I think is very important just for the players to look at and be like, you know, we might not be there this year, but we're going to compete every night and give the other team the best that we have just because, you know, this would be learning experience moving forward. And Colorado does have good young players.
Absolutely. And I think that this is a huge, huge important move for the hockey club right now. I mean, ultimately, first of all, you get the respect of the players. I mean, when you have a former Avalanche player, 3-time Vezina winner, Stanley Cup winner, guy's a Hall of Famer. I mean, you can't help but go in the locker room and respect this guy, and you're going to listen to what he has to say. And right now, Colorado also has the first pick in the upcoming draft. So that's going to be huge. I mean, and Joe Sakic just got moved to the front office too. I mean, this club is something to watch out for.
I mean, this is going back years, but this has got to hurt for the Montreal Canadiens. You had Patrick Waugh as your goaltender, booted him out of town, goes to the Avalanche, wins some Stanley Cups. Now he becomes the Avalanche head coach in Montreal. You know, second-guessing their coaching decision, knocked out of the playoffs first round. You know, the fans up there. So I'm sure they regret that decision those many years ago.
Absolutely.
Speaking of leaders of teams, Daniel Alfredsson, captain for the Ottawa Senators, uncertain, been their captain for years. He's uncertain if he's going to return for an 18th season or if he'll retire.
I mean, for me, it's still up in the air. The guy's 40 years old, but, I mean, Coach McLean seems to be very confident that he's returning. And right now, I mean, he's still got the silky hands. He can still compete with the young guns. I think he can pull it off, and, you know, he wants to go out with a cup. And right now, the Senators are in the Stanley Cup discussion, but they're not really quite there yet. But I think ultimately they're going to be someone to watch out for next year. I mean, they're going to have a healthy Spezza, a healthy Carlson, and a full year of Anderson in net.
I mean, for Alfredsson, I hope he doesn't retire just for his lasting words and images. I don't think we're going to win this game against Pittsburgh. I mean, you don't want that to be your legacy for fans to remember as the last thing you do in a Senators uniform. I mean, he's been up there forever. He's, you know, when they had, I know he's been there forever, but I really hope that he returns just because he's a great player. He's a great leader. And for the Senators moving forward, this season, just to make it to the playoffs was a tremendous achievement just because they were so riddled by injuries. And you hope that Alfredsson comes back next year and there'll be, you know, a full off season you'll have healthy players, and moving forward, I think if they can do that, and Alfredson as their leader, I mean, I know he's not the player he used to be. He's still an unbelievable player.
At 40
still
years
can,
old.
Yeah, still can put the puck in the net. I mean, he's still on the first line with Milan McCulloch. So you hope he comes back. If he doesn't, he's had a great career, but I think he's going to come back for one more season just because of the promise that they had this playoff run.
Yeah, going this deep is definitely, I mean, it's definitely going to do something for his return. You can't help but think about that and just having a plethora of players coming back who are going to be healthy. And, you know, like you said, he's just a great player. When you think Senators hockey, you think Daniel Alfredson. That's immediately who comes to mind. So I hope he does come back.
I think maybe a factor if he doesn't come back is just tired legs.
Yeah, I mean
18 seasons is a lot of hockey and a lot of workouts, a lot of early skates, you know. I mean, but I think he's going to come back in the end. So I don't know if everyone saw, but a month or two ago, Mark Stahl, defenseman for the New York Rangers, doesn't wear a face shield, which is a big deal in the NHL right now. Got hit in the eye with a puck, you know, out for the rest of the season. Played one game in the playoffs, didn't play that much. And he had said in an article the other day that he doesn't think his eye will ever be 100% again, but he's going to, you know, try to tough it out. I think he'll be close to the player that he used to be, but if he's himself is saying his eye isn't 100%, that's not good.
I mean, I hate to hear it, I really do. He's a great player, and, you know, he says, oh, I'm going to play at the best, you know, skill level I can. And it's just dangerous right now for all. Like, I mean, Crosby recently too, getting his jaw broken. I think the league should implement a rule about it, honestly.
I mean, that brings up the discussion: should every player have to wear a half shield? Should players have to wear a full shield, like college hockey in the United States? I mean, you see a lot of the newer, younger players coming up wearing half shields. You see a lot of the older, more grizzled vet players per se, as you see on the Bruins, Chara not wearing a half shield. So, I mean, I think it's part of the generation. The older guys, you know, don't want to wear half shields because they've never been wearing them. The younger players do. So, I mean, the league's going to have to look at this and decide, is every player going to have to wear a half shield or not?
I mean, just the league itself has been plagued with injuries on this whole ideal right now. And for me, I think it's all about the safety of the players. And, you know, I know there's players out there who refuse to wear the shield, but it's for their eyesight, it's for, you know, it's for their career. And it's at the end of the day, it's all about safety. And as a former player, I don't think there's really that much of a difference, really.
So, I mean, that will be interesting to see going forward this offseason if there's going to be discussion about wearing a half shield. So, moving on to the NFL, we have an article. We talked about Michael Vick last week.
Here he is again.
How he never was able to handle football. And this week he comes out again saying that he claims he's still the fastest quarterback in the NFL, faster than Robert Griffin III, RG3 of the Redskins, and Colin Kaepernick, sensational rookie from the San Francisco 49ers.
I mean, this guy just refuses to stay out of the media. He just, you know, first he can't carry the football, and now this. Again, I think that this is something that's completely false. I mean, you're 33 years old. I mean, supposedly I heard that he challenged teammate LaShawn McCoy to a 40-yard dash. He supposedly beat him. McCoy says that he cheated. I don't know. Who am I to say? But, I mean, the guy, he's not going to have the same legs. The knees aren't there. And he's not a contender. He's not a contender with Kaepernick and Russell Wilson from Seattle, another guy who loves, you know, the bootleg. And it's just, I think it's a complete lie.
He pretty much said that he could beat any quarterback in the league in a 40-yard dash, which, I mean, Vic, when he was on the Falcons, you remember his runs, just juking guys left and right. But, I mean, he's 33. I mean, he's still top 5 fastest quarterbacks, but I don't think he's near Robert Griffin III with a healthy knee or a Kaepernick. I mean, maybe he's faster than Russell Wilson. I don't know, but I definitely don't think he's the fastest quarterback in the league.
Absolutely not.
So, speaking of that quarterback, Joe Flacco paid this offseason ridiculous amount of money after winning the Super Bowl, and his agent says that the Baltimore Ravens were pretty much dumb for not signing Flacco before this upcoming season because, I mean, everyone's saying, oh, you know, Flacco pretty much demolished the team's chances of signing any other free agents or any other players. In fact, because of the amount of money he got, and his agent says, I don't care. I mean, you guys, it's your fault. You should have signed him the season before. He won your Super Bowl. He deserves all that money.
I mean, granted, you're this guy's agent, and this is just poor PR. That's PR. That's public relations 101. You don't diss the club, you know. And like I said, he's paid to represent Joe Flacco, and I mean, excuse the pun, but he's dragging him into a dumb controversy, really. And I mean, for me, I've never liked Flacco personally.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about this?
I mean, $121 million contract for Joe Flacco. I don't even think he's in the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I really don't. I mean, I don't think he deserves more money than Brady.
Of course
I don't think he deserves more money than Manning, Rodgers. I mean, just for Flacco. I mean, good for him. He made his money.
Yeah,
he capitalized on the chance. I mean, I can see it from his agent's perspective. You know, the Baltimore Ravens there was talk before this upcoming season before last season that, I mean, they were going to sign him to a new contract. But, I mean, he cashed in on his money, but I don't think Joe Flacco's agent should have said that. I mean, you're pretty much going him and Flacco against the club.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what he's saying. Like, you guys were in the wrong, we were in the right. So, I mean, you never really want that as a player, as a quarterback of a club.
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to show up to training camp and stuff when everyone's like, oh, this guy's dissing us, he's dissing the club, he doesn't want to be here, he's here for the money. I mean, I think he's completely overrated.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to compare him to a guy like Brady who took a pay cut for the team so that they could bring in some new talent and be the best team that they could be. And this guy's asking for a bigger extension, more money. It's just...
You know, Brady takes a pay cut thinking, you know, they're going to sign Wilker. They let him go. So, I mean, he does it on good faith, I guess you could say. It doesn't really work out in the end. But, I mean, you show that pretty much shows Brady's for the team rather than for himself.
He trusts Belichick.
Yeah. So, I mean, good for Flacco, I guess. Bad for him and his agent. So, I mean, speaking of quarterbacks, you got Tony Romo, too. I don't even know if he's a top 5 quarterback. He got $100 million this offseason as well from Jerry Jones, the infamous Cowboys owner. And Jerry Jones says, you know what? Flacco. Romo better produce because for all that money I'm giving him, I expect pretty much everything out of him. I want Super Bowls, this and that. So he wants his money worth, pretty much.
I mean, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is, what is Jerry thinking here? $100 million. I can't even fathom that. This is a humongous mistake. I mean, the guy has 1 playoff win. And, like, he's tied for the most interceptions at 19. Plus a 4-game streak where he threw 10 picks. He's ranked 16 for passing percentage. I mean, this is just a huge mistake. Yeah, he's a franchise player, but you know, he's getting up there in age. He's not really developing and flourishing anymore. I think it's time to free up that space.
I mean, I guess, you know, they got as much as they could out of him for a late round draft pick in the draft when they drafted him. I mean, I don't think he was expected to be the franchise quarterback. I mean, they paid him a lot. I don't think he deserved it. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I think can lead them in the playoffs. I don't think he can lead in the Super Bowl. But I mean, you pay him that money, you want him to win a Super Bowl. So I guess we'll see how that one goes coming into this upcoming season. Sneaking in a little college football here. Big story over this weekend was Notre Dame freshman quarterback Everett Golston, pretty much out of Notre Dame for poor academic judgment. I mean, we'll guess that it's up to you to decipher what that means. But, I mean, that's a big blow for Notre Dame. BCS National Championship last year. Golston was a freshman, pretty good freshman.
Sure.
I mean, probably the best quarterback at Notre Dame since Brady Quinn.
Oh, easily.
That was a couple of years ago. And this is a big blow going forward for Notre Dame. They're expected to be a top 10 team, so we'll see how that goes.
I mean, for me, I'm a big Irish fan. Seeing Golston go, it's horrible to hear, especially when it's academic, so that automatically tells you the guy had poor grades. And just to leave the school, I mean, losing Manti Te'o as well. They currently have 3 guys who are scholarship, and with all the projections that everybody was saying, I don't know what this team's going to look like right now.
So, I mean, they have a senior quarterback backup last year, Tommy Reese. He had 18 career starts. He played the season before Golston was there, and he played sparingly last season for Golston. And, I mean, he's experienced, so, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a drop-off, but Golston was far more athletic quarterback. They started playing a sort of a spread running gun offense. So without Golston, they're going to have to tone that down. So we'll see if Golston's able to return next season maybe. Don't know what his fate's going to be. Moving on a little bit of NBA thoughts. Boston Celtics, the truth, Paul Pierce. Report came out from this weekend and on NBA Sports Pro Basketball Talk. Said that Pierce, he's under contract for pretty much a little under $15.5 million next season. Could be bought out for $5 million by June 30th. And there's rumors that Danny Ainge is going to pull the trigger on this.
Yeah, that's the rumor that's floating around right now, is that he's just going to buy him out, free up the space, and that Pierce is going to go to the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I think it would be a bad decision to cut Pierce out. I mean, the guy's bled for us. You know, he's won us the championship, and I feel like he's really united Boston with the Celtics ultimately, and I don't want to see him go.
See, I think
it's an end of an era. Honestly.
I think he should retire Celtic, but I think he's going to be gone. I mean, I think they're going to start the season next year. Pierce is going to be gone. It's going to be Kevin Garnett, KG, Rondo, Avery Bradley, pretty much that core, Jeff Green. And they're going to try to bring in someone. There's rumors of them trying to bring in Kevin Love, the all-star forward from Minnesota Timberwolves. But pretty much when it's said and done, I think Pierce is going to be gone, and they're going to bring in another player. I don't think he's going to be the caliber of Pierce, but, I mean, he's going to be up there, and they're going to try to fill that spot. Sort of a funny article from the NBA regarding former Washington Redskins quarterback and current, ESPN football analyst Joe Theismann said that he could teach LeBron James, Ford all-star, pretty much best player in the NBA for the Miami Heat. He could teach LeBron James how to play quarterback in the NFL.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, former quarterback, yeah, and he's saying, all he's got to work on is his footwork. I mean, the guy's clearly an athlete. He's 6'8", 250 pounds. He's physically built. He's a big dude. But, I mean, this guy in the NFL as a quarterback, this is a guy who thinks flopping is a good strategy. He's not going to be sitting in the pocket ready to get crushed by a hit. He would scream like a little schoolgirl.
I mean, Theismann says that he could, when LeBron's done with the NBA, he could try out. I mean, he says he could teach him. LeBron would probably be 38, 39 when he's done from the NBA. He could teach him how to play the quarterback position. I just don't see it happening. I mean, LeBron was a very highly regarded wide receiver in high school. That was many years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the body type, I guess, to play quarterback. But, I mean, you don't just walk off the NBA court, become NFL quarterback. You saw Michael Jordan try to go from, basketball to baseball. Didn't really work out. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen.
I feel like in this day and age, everybody wants to be a two-sport athlete. But realistically, it's not going to happen. I mean, James said himself, he said, I can do anything. I have the ability if I decided to do it. And, just shows how arrogant this guy is, really. I mean, he thinks he's a superstar athlete. And in his own right, he's playing out of his mind right now. This basketball is just crazy, but absolutely not as a quarterback.
And another little interesting tidbit we saw from the NBA was that Phil Jackson, former coach of the Lakers and Chicago Bulls, said that he would pick, in his book that came out, that he would pick Bill Russell, who is a all-star legend forward for the Boston Celtics, who had 11 championships, that he would pick him over MJ and pretty much Kobe Bryant to start a basketball team.
Honestly, I think it's a great first pick. I mean, if you're taking a Celtic from the 50s and 60s era, these guys just had unreal skill and great fundamental basketball skills. And, honestly, for me, though, personally, the first pick would probably be Will Chamberlain.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would immediately jump to Bill Russell.
Yeah, see, right now, I would choose probably Michael Jordan. Just because I think he was the greatest clutch performer, most competitive spirit out of any basketball player, I think, in the history of the NBA. I mean, plays when he has the flu, puts a team on his back in that legendary playoff game. And I think, it was different eras of basketball when Bill Russell played and Michael Jordan played, so you got to kind of factor that in. But I just think if I was to start a team with out of those three, Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant, I would have to choose Michael Jordan.
No, it's tough to say that Michael Jordan had more of that winning aspect than Bill Russell did because, he had that really close relationship with Red Auerbach, obviously, and the guy just had the drive to win, and that's what made him a champion. So I don't know if you can really say Michael Jordan wanted to win more than Russell did, but again, like you said, it's tough to compare the two eras. It's totally different basketball these days. I mean, it's more run and gun now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's pretty controversial statements from Phil Jackson. He's never really been one to say many controversial stuff. So, all right, thanks everybody for tuning in a second episode of Sports Chatter TV. We're glad you joined us. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Sports Chatter TV and like us on Facebook at Sports Chatter TV. I'm your host, Evan Bedell again, co-host Steve Atkinson. And tune in next week because we have guest Steve Candelaro, former NBA executive for 10 years in the National Basketball Association. And we have some questions, and we hope he has some answers for us. So don't forget to tune in next week.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.